So a few hours ago, Korea just had an update, and this brings some new improvements to the Tier 2 Archboss weapons. You may have seen them before and they might have looked a little bit underwhelming, and these buffs may improve them to a point where spending that sheer amount of currency to obtain them might be worth it. Now there were some more changes here, including those towards the longsword, or the sword and shield as we know it, that I actually got wrong when making my assumptions based on these translations. We'll cover more about that later on in the video, along with the significant reward boost to dynamic events and new ones we'll get here with the Talandre update. So we begin with the Archboss weapon changes. As you may be aware, there will be 2 new Archbosses, and the time frame is going to be at the same time. Like the Fell Tree, this being Cordy, is going to be at the same time as Tevent. And then Deluz Noah with those Archboss weapons is going to be at the same time as Queen Belandir. However, it's always going to alternate. One is going to be peace and the other is going to be conflict. So you can attend both, you just might be a little bit late to the conflict party. But you can see Cordy will drop 3 new Archboss weapons, while Deluz Noah will drop 5 new ones. And as they stated in, say, the update notes, they've actually gone and added what they've actually changed. And so there are 4 different ones getting adjusted. We begin with the longbow, and this simply gets an adjustment where before it had a bind chance plus 200 at max level, it'll now just have plus 160 extra hit chance. That's pretty decent, but the main thing with these weapons will be the actual bonus here. But then there was an adjustment to the staff. This actually got a damage improvement for staff ice skills, so now it's going to give a flat 10% boost, but they did remove that 10% boost from the bonus to Hellfire Rain, so now it's 15% instead of before it was 25%. But yeah, now it just has a flat 10% to all your ice skills. Again, making it a little bit better. Then the giant Cordy Spore hand, the wand, basically just got fear added. So now you can be immune to that along with all the other conditions when you use that barrier ability. And finally, the giant Cordy Greatsword. This got an adjustment, so you're going to create this poison cloud and then reduce the enemy's evasion. And now if they move out of the poison cloud, which is not that big of an area, they will still remain having that evasion shred for the duration. And yeah, that was it for these changes. Not the most exciting, but these weapons will still have like generally higher base damage than what you'll get on your traditional weapons, even here in Tier 2. If you haven't already seen the other ones, these are like the Deluz Noah's daggers with their Deluz Noah's barrier ability, basically allowing smokescreen to become a petrification effect on enemies, and then the Deluz Noah's spear causing rising slash to become like a collision push effect, and then the sword and shield increasing the damage of your annihilation blade along with the range and giving it a chance to bind targets. Then with Cordy, there's the notorious Cordy crossbow. This one's kind of insane compared to all the rest, just having that vacuum effect pulling everybody into the center, and it just synergizes super well with, say, the annihilation barrage shot. And then we've already seen the greatsword and the book and wand. And honestly, the Tier 2 Archboss weapons still kind of seem underwhelming, kind of mid. If we do look at the prices here in Korea for those Archboss weapons, we do find they are still pretty expensive, but there are very few available, so that could also lead to people can just price it at what they want without much competition of undercutting. And yeah, there's not even a single Cordy weapon available either. But the latest trade on, say, a Cordy crossbow was like 129,000 lucent, kind of nuts. If we look at our current Archboss weapon, the Queen Belandir ones, yeah, they're like 30 to 40,000. And then the Tevents, yeah, the dagger's still like over 70,000, and the bow is also over 50,000, with the greatsword not as highly priced. But yeah, that's it for the new Archboss weapons upcoming with Tier 2 and the adjustments to them. Let's have a quick look at dynamic events. And we can see here you can obtain some great rewards. Let's look at, say, this one for example. If we got a pretty high rank, we'd be getting like 32 polished crystals, 6 ores, and a whole bunch of food, including the ability to get a new glide morph. If we look at other ones here in the tier 2 area, they similarly can be pretty rewarding with those ores. Again, these are just simple events. You can pop in, get some contribution, at least take away the minimum, and you can do that then like every 3 hours. That's generally how they alternate it. They will also at a certain point start giving purple runes when we actually get that update, but only within the tier 2 areas. And there's a big reason why these rewards actually look a lot better than what we currently have. And that's because I've got these certificates and they allow you to basically triple the amount you're getting. Like even Lantern Seed Festival here, you get like tier 2 and you can get like 10 polished crystals, 3 ores. A big improvement from what we currently have. So definitely looking forward to those. Sure, I'm not the biggest fan of dynamic events, but it's something you can just do in your spare time and potentially even try hard them to get, say, more from them. But now let's jump to the part with the sword and shield adjustments and what I was saying, the synergy with the crossbow. Basically, they're actually fine. They're actually totally fine because this change, all it has done is impacted the time increase effect, which was stated here, but my assumption was that those were linked. The translation could have been better, I guess, but ultimately it will now have a cap of how many times you can increase the duration, which is totally fine. It's only 3 times per second, but that still means you can increase it by 1 second every second, even more than that. Therefore, having 100% uptime on your provoking roar against, say, a few targets if you're always hitting them. But the most impactful effect is the damage. So whenever you deal damage against somebody who's got that provoking effect, you will deal this extra damage. And you're able to synergize that with, say, crossbow and an annihilation barrage shot and just get a ton of extra damage. And if you throw on top of that the new mastery, Wave of Annihilation, you can basically combine it with the Cordy Archboss crossbow, and now you have this vacuum effect where anybody you hit with your Annihilation Barrage shot, this large area will get pulled towards you with the Cordy effect, and then with the Sword and Shield's Spectrum of Agony, they'll now be within 3 meters of you and take all this extra additional damage. So that's not changing. You will still be able to do that. You can see on some dummies, I checked after this change, you put Provoking Roar on the 2 dummies that are next to me. I'll only be attacking this one. I removed the effect that Provoking Roar would cause additional damage on the first hit of the cast, basically, and so that dummy behind me should not get hit if this didn't work. And you can see now it's getting hit. It's under the effect of my Provoking Roar, and so it takes all that extra damage. With the Mastery, it would not have to be under the effect of Provoking Roar to take that damage. So in Tier 1 right now, it's not as impactful because you don't have the pull effect with the Cordy Crossbow, pulling them within 3 meters of you, and then the Wave of Annihilation allowing you to still deal that damage without them actually having that provoke effect, because that provoke skill is also only like a 3 meter radius, which is kind of tiny and currently in Tier 1 not very practical. So yeah, that's good news. Again, I apologize for making those assumptions and announcing that yeah, it would no longer be a thing. It will be. All they've done is change the time increase effect, which again, I'm not sure why. It could just be server side of things. They don't need to be doing all that many calculations then. And if you have your own guesses as to why maybe they did that, feel free to let us know. But you can still get 100% uptime, like 3 times 0.4, still 1.2 seconds. And if you're triggering that every second, you can still even increase the duration of your Provoking Roar against your target, which again isn't such a big deal in the first place because you just generally want it up while you're doing your spin, at least if you're running that PvP combo. But that's somewhat good news. We can absolutely try this out for ourselves, and of course if it does really end up overpowered, busted, and nobody can really counter it, I'm sure it will get adjusted and toned down. But it is mainly heavily reliant on the Cordy Crossbow. If you don't have this thing, then it doesn't really work. you need to be able to pull enemies towards you to keep them within that 3 meters for the duration of that spin. And we won't be getting the quarterly crossbow available to us with that Archboss until at least a month later within tier 2, when we finish, say, the milestones and actually get those Archbosses. So it won't really be a thing until then, sword and shield crossbow, at least for PvP. So that's all for now. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you all around. Goodbye for now.